Darth Maul was discreetly observing the busy streets of Tatooine. Hidden in the shadows, he followed the every move of Anakin Skywalker, who was calmly working on the parts of a racing pod. It was impossible to ignore the strong presence of the Force emanating from the boy, attracting him like a dark magnet. His original mission was different, but this was too important to ignore. Without hesitation, he activated his holographic communicator and contacted his master, Darth Sidious, immediately reporting what he had discovered. "Master, I have found something unexpected," Maul announced cautiously. "A boy with a Force potential I have never witnessed before. What should I do?" Palpatine, in his dark room on Coruscant, listened carefully to his apprentice's words. His heart raced with an anticipation he hadn't felt for a long time. With a discreet smile, he replied in a firm and decisive tone, "Bring him to me immediately. Don't attract the attention of the Jedi. Be quick and efficient, Lord Maul." Once the communication had ended, Darth Maul slowly approached the workshop where Anakin was finalizing repairs to his pod. The boy, feeling a strange chill, looked up and saw the sinister silhouette of the Sith looming in the doorway. Before he could react, Maul made a subtle movement with his hand, paralyzing the young Skywalker with the use of the Force. Anakin felt unable to react as Maul whispered in a dark voice, "Don't resist, young man. Your destiny will be far greater than this insignificant planet." Without arousing suspicion or causing a commotion, Maul placed the fainted boy in the ship, which was strategically positioned on the outskirts of the desert, away from prying eyes. When Anakin finally woke up, he realized that he was no longer on the hot sands of Tatooine, but inside a silent ship, surrounded by luminous panels and the menacing figure of the Sith. He tried to get up, but realized that he was bound by invisible chains. He looked around frightened, trying to understand what was happening. "Who are you? Where are you taking me?" asked Anakin in a trembling voice. "Soon you will know, young Skywalker. Soon you will understand the great power you have within you," replied Maul with an almost imperceptible smile. Anakin remained silent, confused and frightened, as he watched Tatooine slowly disappear through the ship's window. In the back of his mind, he thought of his mother, Shmi, worrying about what would happen to her after her sudden departure. After a short, silent journey, Darth Maul landed discreetly on Coruscant. There, Palpatine anxiously awaited the arrival of his apprentice with the precious cargo. Seeing the boy for the first time, Palpatine felt the intensity of the Force in Anakin like a flash that filled the entire room. He approached him slowly, analyzing him with an almost scientific curiosity. Then he looked at Darth Maul and said with restrained satisfaction, "Well done, my apprentice. Now let's see how special this boy really is." Palpatine then carefully approached Anakin, performing a quick test to measure his midichlorians. The device immediately gave an astonishing result, indicating that the boy possessed a level higher than any other ever recorded. Palpatine barely managed to hide his smile as he said, in a soft voice, "Fascinating Anakin Skywalker. You may indeed be the chosen one. Your existence will change the course of this galaxy forever." Palpatine turned to Darth Maul and coldly determined, "His training must begin immediately, Lord Maul. Prepare the boy to embrace the power of the dark side. When he is ready, I will complete his instruction myself." Darth Maul nodded seriously, understanding the importance of that mission. He knew that shaping Anakin Skywalker would be the greatest challenge and also the most important of his life as a Sith. Everything depended on the success of that training. In the early days, Anakin resisted Darth Maul's attempts to bring him closer to the dark side. He often repeated, "Qui-Gon told me that the Sith are evil. I'll never be like you." Maul, patient and methodical, instructed by Palpatine on how to manipulate the boy, slowly began to inflate Anakin's ego. Using a firm, seductive voice, he began to convince him that he was someone special, unlike any other being he had ever seen. "You don't understand yet, Anakin," Darth Maul said softly. "You were born for something much greater than you realize. You will be the most powerful Force user in the galaxy. Think of what you can achieve, the people you can protect. You could even free your mother from her slavery. Gradually, the Sith's words began to have an effect, and Anakin, though still uncertain, began to consider that perhaps this really was the only way to save Shmi. Sensing the boy's weakness, Maul carefully demonstrated practical examples of the power of the dark side. He made objects levitate easily, showing skills that fascinated the boy. Anakin watched impressed, beginning to understand that perhaps there was more power in him than the Jedi had said. Slowly, his defenses fell, allowing Maul to begin his real training. Palpatine, meanwhile, watched with satisfaction, knowing that this boy was destined to carry out his greatest plans for the galaxy. Under the watchful and implacable eye of Darth Maul, Anakin's training began to evolve rapidly. The unique combination of Anakin's powerful sensitivity to the Force and his new master's aggressive and deadly combat style accelerated his development beyond all expectations. Maul noticed with satisfaction that the boy was quickly mastering advanced techniques that would have taken an ordinary Jedi years. "You will be stronger than I have ever been," Maul would often say, raising the young apprentice's ambition even higher. Anakin trained day after day, initially resenting Maul's harsh demands. Physical and emotional pain was part of his routine, but he began to understand it as a means of achieving what he deeply desired: the power to protect and free his mother. Every time he felt doubt, Maul would come up with precise words, teaching him how to channel his emotions. "Anger and hatred are powerful fuels, Anakin. Learn to master them, and you will be unbeatable." As he progressed, Anakin realized the unlimited potential that connecting with the dark side of the Force brought him. As a young boy, he easily overcame challenges that even Jedi Masters would find difficult. His growing mastery frightened even Darth Maul, who was beginning to realize that the young apprentice could soon surpass him. In secret, Palpatine followed everything, becoming even more convinced that Anakin really was the chosen one, the one destined to master the Force like no other before him. However, something unexpected happened during the training. Anakin's intense connection with the dark side awakened in him abilities never seen before. In his meditation sessions, Anakin began to manifest powers that no Jedi or Sith had ever displayed at such intensity. His ability to foresee future events grew exponentially, allowing him to anticipate movements in combat with frightening precision. Palpatine, informed of this by Maul, smiled with satisfaction. At last, he was witnessing the true meaning of the prophecy being revealed. In addition to exceptional precognition, Anakin also displayed superior mastery of telekinetic control, being able to move objects much larger and heavier than veteran Jedi Masters. Maul often challenged his apprentice with extreme exercises, watching in amazement as Anakin manipulated huge objects with ease. "No Jedi or Sith has ever come close to that, young apprentice. Your power already far exceeds theirs," said Maul, further fueling Anakin's ego and ambition. Seeing the boy's impressive progress, Palpatine decided it was the perfect time to intensify his connection with the dark side. He needed to take Anakin to the next stage, a point of no return. To do this, he secretly contacted Count Dooku, giving him clear and cruel instructions. "The time has come, Count Dooku. Kill the boy's mother. Make it dramatic and cruel, so that he loses himself in his grief and rage for good," the Sith Master ordered coldly. Dooku, although hesitant, clearly understood the importance of that mission and immediately set off to carry it out. When the news of Shmi's brutal death reached Anakin, the young apprentice completely succumbed to grief, hatred, and despair. From that moment on, there was no doubt or hesitation in his heart. Darth Maul took advantage of this vulnerability to further strengthen the dark side's grip on the boy. "Use your pain as power, Anakin. Make it a weapon. Be the warrior you were born to be." Anakin looked up with cold eyes full of fury, determined to destroy whoever had done this to his mother. To ensure that the boy would never turn against him, Palpatine carefully manipulated him, using perverse logic to blame the Jedi for Shmi's death. With subtlety, he explained to Anakin that, due to the presence of the Jedi on Tatooine, Watto had traded Shmi to an even crueler lord, who ended up taking her to a terrible fate. "You see, Anakin," said Palpatine with false compassion, "if the Jedi hadn't interfered in your life, your mother would still be alive." Anakin, overcome by grief and resentment, began to believe that the Jedi, even indirectly, had destroyed his happiness. This conviction planted by the Sith was enough to awaken in him an implacable desire for revenge, exactly what Palpatine had planned all along. Shortly afterwards, Anakin became the most feared apprentice in the galaxy, adopting the name Darth Vader, given to him by Palpatine himself. Alongside Darth Maul and Count Dooku, he began terrorizing planets and spreading the rule of the Empire that was about to emerge. The Jedi Council despaired at the growth of the Sith threat, with offensives led by Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, unable to stop the deadly advance of the young man who had once been their hope. "We have to stop him," said Obi-Wan in anguish. Under Palpatine's command, Vader, Maul, and Dooku had become an implacable force, capable of subduing entire worlds. The Jedi, led by Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, did everything they could to stop the devastating advance of this new enemy. Darth Vader's fame quickly spread throughout the galaxy. On Coruscant, his shadowy figure became synonymous with power and absolute fear, a name capable of sending shivers down the spine of even the bravest. His training with Darth Maul had become legendary. Even the Jedi recognized, with deep awe, that the apprentice of the dark side was beyond the capabilities of any Padawan or Jedi Knight they had ever met. Palpatine watched the growth of his greatest weapon with satisfaction, realizing that the time had finally come to assign him greater missions. It was then that Palpatine summoned Darth Vader to his presence and, with an evil smile on his lips, assigned him a mission that would completely test his loyalty to the dark side. Vader was to assassinate the young Senator Padme Amidala from Naboo, who would become a symbol of resistance against Palpatine's political plans in the Galactic Senate. "Show me that you are ready to rule the galaxy by my side," Palpatine ordered coldly, throwing Vader straight into the heart of that complex and emotionally dangerous task. Upon secretly arriving at Senator Amidala's apartment on Coruscant, Anakin expected to carry out the mission without difficulty. But when he met her, his eyes immediately lost their coldness. Padme recognized him immediately and gave him a warm smile. "Annie, is that you? I can't believe you're back. Where have you been all this time?" The young woman's voice was full of relief and friendship, completely dismantling the initial intentions of the Sith apprentice, who had let his guard down without realizing it. Confused by her friendly reaction, Anakin began to be reluctant to go ahead with the plan. When Padme asked about his life, Anakin felt an immense need to speak, opening his heart for the first time about the past. "My mother is dead, Padme. Everything happened because of the Jedi. They were to blame for her death. My life has been over since that day." Padme, surprised, gently touched his shoulder, trying to comfort him. "Anakin, that can't be true. The Jedi would never do anything like that." Moved by Padme's words, Anakin revealed what he had become since his departure from Tatooine. He recounted how he had been kidnapped by Darth Maul and trained by the Sith, becoming Darth Vader, one of the most feared beings in the galaxy. With every word, he could see the deep sadness in Padme's eyes as she listened in shock to his story. "You don't have to do this, Anakin. There's still hope for you," she pleaded, holding his hand tightly. Before he could reply, the doors to the chamber opened quickly, revealing Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had sensed that the senator was in imminent danger. As they entered, they stopped immediately when they recognized Anakin. Qui-Gon stepped forward, staring at the boy he had once rescued on Tatooine. "Anakin, what's going on here? We sensed that Padme was in danger, and now we find her with you." Upon recognizing the Jedi, Anakin's expression changed dramatically. His eyes blazed with anger and pain, staring directly at Qui-Gon Jinn. "You were there, Qui-Gon. You are responsible for my mother's death. Who was to blame for leaving her abandoned?" Qui-Gon replied calmly, but shaken by the accusation. "We don't know anything about that, Anakin. We never intended to hurt your mother or you." Anakin took a step back, his expression as hard and cold as ice. He raised his hand, and a red saber flashed brightly in the darkness of the room. The Jedi immediately realized what had happened. Obi-Wan exclaimed, startled, "Have you become a Sith?" Anakin stared at him and replied firmly, Anakin is dead. My name is Darth Vader." Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan exchanged desperate glances. Anakin was the dreaded Darth Vader. That boy was now the most powerful weapon ever seen among the Sith. The Jedi switched on their sabers. Qui-Gon then said regretfully, "Anakin, I am deeply sorry that you have become this. You must surrender and come with us now." Anakin grinned mischievously, knowing full well that they were no match for him. Padme, anguished, pleaded with tears in her eyes, "Anakin, please surrender. They had done him no harm." Her every word was like a needle through his heart, leaving him unable to go on. Hesitating, Anakin switched off his saber and turned to leave through the balcony. Qui-Gon then spoke firmly, "We can't let you go." Anakin stopped immediately, turned angrily and raised both hands, launching two powerful blasts of Force lightning towards the Jedi. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan defended themselves with their sabers, but the impact was so violent that they were both thrown brutally against the wall. Without saying another word, Anakin calmly turned around and jumped off the balcony, landing skillfully on his ship, which was waiting for him parked below. Still stunned, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan looked at each other in shock, realizing for the first time the extent of the power Anakin had achieved. After catching his breath, Qui-Gon said worriedly, "We need to inform the Council immediately. He's even more powerful than we imagined." Before returning to Palpatine's presence, Anakin needed to better understand what had happened in that room with Padme. He didn't understand why such strong feelings still existed in him, even after so long immersed in the dark side. He needed clear answers about his past and his mother's death. Isolating himself briefly in meditation, he immersed himself deeply in the Force, allowing his visions to reveal themselves with absolute clarity. There he saw the truth clearly. Palpatine had ordered Dooku to kill his mother. Consumed by a devastating rage, Anakin immediately went to meet Palpatine. When he entered the throne room on Coruscant, he went straight to his master. This time there was no reverence or submission. There was only a cold, grim expression. Palpatine immediately noticed the drastic change in his apprentice and tried to keep control of the situation. But before he could say a word, he felt a violent pressure on his neck. With one hand outstretched, Anakin lifted him off the ground using the Force, choking him relentlessly. His voice filled with fury, Anakin questioned Palpatine mercilessly. "Why did you kill her? Why did you take my mother from me?" Palpatine, made desperate by the overwhelming strength Anakin displayed, quickly tried to escape the situation with a desperate lie. "It wasn't me, Anakin. Dooku was responsible for her death, not me." However, Anakin had already clearly seen the truth in his visions. Knowing that Palpatine was blatantly lying, he dropped him to the ground, letting him fall heavily. Determined, he advanced without hesitation, raising his red lightsaber towards his fallen master. Anakin made a point of facing him without using his Force powers. Palpatine opened his eyes wide, uselessly activating his own saber to try to defend himself. Anakin easily blocked his attack and, with one swift movement, pierced the Sith's chest with his bright red blade, looking him straight in the eye as he said coldly, "The dream of your empire ends here." After eliminating Palpatine, Anakin wasted no time and immediately set off to find Count Dooku, knowing that he was still on Coruscant carrying out a mission at the behest of the now-deceased Sith. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Senate building, Dooku had quietly arrived to carry out the order he had received: assassinate Senator Bail Organa. However, when he entered the senator's chambers, Dooku found something unexpected. His former apprentice, Qui-Gon Jinn, was waiting for him with saber in hand. Qui-Gon had been sent by the Jedi Council after detecting an intrusion into the Senate building's security system. "I didn't expect to find you here, Master," said Qui-Gon firmly, looking seriously at his former mentor. Dooku, surprised, replied with a sarcastic smile, "Get out of the way, Qui-Gon. You can't stop me." Qui-Gon raised his saber with determination and replied calmly, "I won't let you kill the senator. You know I'm capable of taking him on. Give up while you can." Before the fight could begin, a dark voice suddenly echoed down the corridor, interrupting the tension between master and apprentice. It was Darth Vader, standing there with a lit red saber in his hand. With a menacing tone, Anakin said, "No, Dooku, you're at a disadvantage here." Qui-Gon and Dooku looked surprised at Anakin, not understanding his presence there. Vader stared at Dooku with absolute fury and explained coldly, "You killed my mother. I saw it clearly in my visions." Dooku, immediately realizing that he could never stand up to Anakin's power, tried to save himself with one last lie. "It wasn't me, Anakin. It was Palpatine who ordered her death. Not me." Anakin gave a bitter smile, realizing the cowardice in Dooku's attitude. Sensing the imminent danger, Qui-Gon tried to intervene, saying quickly, "Anakin, wait. You don't have to kill him. Bring him with us. Jedi justice will take care of it." But before Qui-Gon could finish his sentence, Vader replied coldly, "Jedi justice failed me once. They won't make the same mistake again." Qui-Gon and Dooku felt at that moment the absolute power that Anakin controlled. They both knew that they wouldn't be able to stop him if he decided to attack. Dooku trembled at the mortal threat in front of him, trying one last desperate attempt. "It was Palpatine who ordered her death. I was only following orders." Vader advanced slowly, saber raised, and replied with a deadly cold tone, "But it was you who killed her with your own hands. You will pay with your life." Dooku knew that his only chance of survival was to catch Anakin off guard, and in a desperate attempt, he launched a force bolt in his direction. Anakin stretched out one hand and easily neutralized Dooku's rays. With a sarcastic smile and without allowing time for any reaction, Anakin raised his other arm, unleashing a powerful electrical discharge that threw Dooku violently against the wall, knocking him to the ground. As the Sith fell, completely helpless, Qui-Gon felt a deep shiver of fear as he realized the true extent of Anakin's dark power. But instead of attacking Qui-Gon, Anakin just stared at him and said in a somber voice, "Don't interfere anymore." Qui-Gon didn't dare move, while the shadowy Vader coldly advanced on Dooku, launching another electrical discharge, executing him without hesitation. With the threat over, Vader slowly turned to Qui-Gon and, before leaving, said coldly, "Tell the Jedi that Palpatine was the Sith Lord they were looking for." Without waiting for an answer, Vader quickly left the room, leaving Qui-Gon alone and bewildered by this frightening new reality. After the confrontation between Anakin and the Sith, the Jedi Council met quickly to decide how they should deal with him and Darth Maul. The debate between the Masters was long, as many still feared the enormous power that Anakin possessed. Qui-Gon Jinn, who had been spared twice by Anakin, took the floor, defending him firmly in front of the other members of the council. "Anakin could easily have killed me, but he chose not to. I don't see any destructive interest in the Republic in him, but I can't say the same for Darth Maul," argued Qui-Gon, insisting that they should keep a close eye on both of them, especially the former Sith Master. Following Qui-Gon's prudent recommendation, the Council decided to keep Anakin and Darth Maul under surveillance. At the same time, Qui-Gon began to feel an increasing responsibility for Anakin, considering himself a crucial part of his journey from Tatooine. Together with Padme Amidala, he began an ongoing effort to rebuild a relationship with Anakin, helping him to leave behind the weight of his dark past. Little by little, frequent encounters with Padme softened Anakin's heart, allowing the anger and guilt to slowly dissipate. Padme and Qui-Gon's joint effort produced profound results in Anakin's life, and he finally found the emotional peace he needed to move forward. Years later, Anakin married Padme, and together they had 2 children, Luke and Leia. The presence of his family became essential in his life, bringing him balance and happiness that he never thought he would achieve after years of darkness. As his children grew up, Anakin decided to teach Luke everything he had learned about the Force, but this time from a balanced perspective and aware of the dangers of the dark side. One day, during a walk with Luke through the beautiful forests of Naboo, Anakin felt a familiar presence that he hadn't noticed for a long time. Curious and cautious, he moved slowly through the trees until he clearly saw the figure of Darth Maul, his former Sith Master, watching him calmly from under a dark cloak. Maul immediately sensed his approach and asked, with a slight irony in his voice, "So you're not a Sith anymore?" Anakin smiled discreetly and replied serenely, "I'm just Anakin now." Darth Maul, with a reflective and distant expression, asked in a more serious tone, "Don't you feel angry with me?" Anakin looked him straight in the eye and replied with sincere calm, "Because you kidnapped me? I have, but today I understand that perhaps it was the will of the Force. It led me here, and if you hadn't, my fate could have been even worse. Becoming Darth Vader taught me about a part of me that I don't want to ever prevail." As they watched Luke, who was playing innocently from a distance, Darth Maul pointed discreetly in the boy's direction and commented softly, "The Force is strong in him." Anakin, with a hopeful expression, replied proudly, "Yes, I hope he's a better man than I am." A slight smile appeared on Maul's face, and he nodded respectfully. Without saying another word, he pulled his hood over his head and disappeared silently into the trees, never to be seen by Anakin again. Years later, Luke grew up to be a knight skilled with the Force, respected and admired throughout the galaxy. Being trained by Anakin, he also decided to follow his own path, remaining independent of the Jedi Order but always collaborating with the Jedi Council. Leia, on the other hand, followed in her mother's footsteps, becoming an admired and influential senator. This time, Anakin's experience with the dark side allowed him to return to the light in time, proving that his dark journey had been essential for him to find his true destiny.